there's well, I'm just gonna put this out there. I'm gonna start with this because it's just gonna help us. The absence of UX research has a technical name. We call it guessing. And guessing is basically what we do when we don't have the research to actually inform the decisions that have to be made. So one can think of uh, the goal of research is to answer the really important questions that everybody in the organization are faced with for every project, every feature, every product, every service, even big decisions like, should we acquire a company? All of these things, when we don't have UX research, we are guessing at what the experience is going to be like for people who are uh, very much in a place where they don't really have um, the information they need to be able to make that decision soundly and well understood. And so we need to understand how to take our UX research and scale it up to handle all the different types of decisions. And that's what we're gonna explore today. Now, one of the things that happens when a project starts is uh, for a lot of UX folks, we can think of a project as a timeline. It's got a start moment, it's got an end moment. That's often when the product is declared ready to ship. Uh, um, and from a UX research standpoint, whatever decisions we're going to use the research to answer, we don't discover until we're in these early stages of the project. And it's inside the early stages of the project that we discover, okay, what decisions are facing us. And then what happens is we try to to cram as much UX into this time frame as we can. And this is where we do both research and design. But the problem is that these time frames can be really short. I mean, if we're thinking in terms of sprints, they can be 2 or 3 weeks. If we give ourselves a little bit more time, we're still thinking short periods, like 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Maybe we get a quarter, but that's the sort of limits that we're working on here, right? And this deadline is almost always predetermined, right? That wasn't even formulated. We before we knew what we were going to build or how long it was going to take us to build it, we knew when we were going to ship it. Which suddenly means that there's all this negotiation that happens to figure out what we're cutting out and what we're eliminating from the project because we have to remove things out of scope because there's too much to do in this limited time frame. And so what we see is in order to get these decisions made, however many days we have to do this research, that's what it's going to take. So if this is the research time, right, we only get so many days in order to answer the questions. And in that time, we have to do a full research plan in many cases, right? We have to figure out who the participants are. We have to recruit them. We have to go out and meet them, and we have to construct some sort of instrument or protocol for finding out what we're going to do. We have to synthesize the results. We have to produce the the report, and hopefully we can produce something at a point where for the rest of the project that decision is set and we're good. And the reality is that there are some number of decisions that at this point have to be made that can't wait this many days, right? We can call these R days. And we can't wait our number of days to get to this answer. So instead, because we don't have research, we guess. So we guess and we guess and we guess and we hope we guess right. And that's how far too many projects work. And so, I mean, if this is your project, just, put a little emoticon in emoji in the, that's how old I am. I still refer to them as emoticons. Put a little emoji in the chat, just to signify that I've talked about your world. Just because this is, this is the world I see all the time. And so there we go. I didn't think I was talking about things that don't happen. So this is the world of so many UX people. Now the thing is that we don't even find out if it was a good decision until like here, right? This is when our somebody uses the thing that we shipped, and that usually doesn't happen the day the project ends. That usually happens some amount of time afterwards. And the other thing is that there are incredibly critical decisions that were made long before this project started. So, for example, one of the things that was decided was that we were even going to work on this thing, right? Somewhere that maybe there's a roadmap, and this project has been picked on the roadmap to be the next project we work on. And there's usually some amount of time in there. So that decision was made even before the start of the project, because in order to know what the project is, you have to do that. And to put it on the roadmap, there's even a time before that. And to even consider the capability for the roadmap, there's a time before that. So we have a consideration time, we have the time that's put on the roadmap, we have the time that it comes off the roadmap and it's made into the next project, and then we find out about it. And so there's all of this time that happens. And all of this, because there's very little research that goes into this is also all guessing. And then we do things like ship things and nobody uses it, and we hear crickets, and we're wondering why we made such a bad choice. And it's because everything is, up until this point is all guessing. It's guessing central. And the reason is because research takes too many days. At least that's the perception that we've created in the minds of the stakeholders and the leaders who are the ones who decide whether we have time to do research or not. And just to be frank with you, this is our fault. We did this to ourselves. This is a self-inflicted wound. We decided that we were going to focus on research that was very discrete. And that research that was discrete uh, gets us into trouble. And the key questions: what features should we build? What do those features need to do to make customers happy? How long will the project be given to deliver the features? What are the requirements for the features? All those decisions are made without any research involved, even though every single one of those decisions has a huge effect on the experience that the users will have. And so this is the core problem. This is what I've been focused on for the last, I don't know, 10 years, is to figure out how to get past this. And what we're talking about here is the fact that the research that we do is both discrete and reactive. It's discrete in that we only think about research in this time period. And we get another project and we think about the research in that time period, never going back to the research that we did in this time period. And we think about another project, and it's all just discrete project work, right? It's as if when we start this project, this one never happened. And when we start this project, these two never happened. We just move from one discrete project to the next with almost no experiential buildup in what we're learning. And the other issue here is that it's completely reactive. It's reactive in that we are reacting to whatever decisions are surfaced at this moment. And when that moment repeats itself here, we react to that. And when that moment repeats itself here, we react to that. So the issue is we are both discrete in continuity and reactive. And again, we've done this to ourselves, because if you go out and you look at any of the literature out in the world about how to do research, it talks about the work being completely reactive. So that's the basic idea, is to focus on the how do we change this to be something that gets us those the question that's up front, so that we know how to get the answers, and to do that early enough in the process to be able to really make things effective. And so this is our shift, right? We want to shift to this so that we reduce the number of days that between the time that a decision is identified and the insights are provided. And what we want to do is we want to get those numbers of days to be approaching zero. In other words, a 0-day decision is a decision where the insights are available so that anyone who has to make that decision has everything they need, and they don't have to guess on the day the decision has to be there. That's the idea. And this is where continuous research comes in. Continuous research starts with this idea that we want to become proactive. Proactive means that we're actually researching things before the questions are asked. So we're moving away from discrete research projects, and the projects become continuous. In other words, we are researching all the time. So we can go back to our idea here of a project. So we have a project, then we have the next project or sprint or whatever you want to call it. Uh, um, and instead of doing discrete research for each of these, we actually start by uh, creating a research agenda well in advance or as early as we can of the first project. And we can do this, we can get away with this because we know what the what's on the roadmap, because that's an accessible piece of information. We understand what's in the product portfolio of the organization. And we can start to look at what are the things teams are likely to be working on. We can make some guesses about what things teams are likely to work on. And we can go and we can discover what it's like to be the users of those the things that the team is going to work on in advance of that. When we're in the sort of discrete world here, the primary tool is usability testing. And the problem with usability testing is the perception is that you have to have a design to test. So you can't do anything until some prototype or some capability is available out there. But if we free ourselves up of usability testing and we start saying, well, no, what we really want to do is we just want to do research where we basically go hang out with the people who are our users and we learn everything out about what it is that they're going to do. For those organizations where users and customers are in different places, uh, uh, that um, uh, that can be you can think of them as basically different types of users, right? Jeff Patton uses the term, which I love, which is users and choosers. And so we can figure out what choosers need from the product, and we can figure out what users need from the product, and we can go and spend time with both of those and really get to understand what they need. And this idea of deep hanging out, last week we talked about the maturity of research, and we talked about how there are more mature forms of research than usability testing. And these types of techniques are really key to going and understanding what it means for our users, who our users are and what they're going to need. And we use those techniques to start to get a picture of the experience of our users. Now, one way to think about this, and if you've hung out with me for any amount of time, you know that I come back to this quite a bit, is that we can map out a user's experience. So, users planning a vacation, we can look at all the things that person does to plan the vacation. These are the sort of milestones that a person took in order to plan their vacation. And when I talk about experiences, I'm always talking in the past tense because we want to really think about experiences in terms of a person doing a thing, right? This is Edna's experience. Edna is a real person. We hung out with Edna. We could see what things Edna did to plan her vacation. And it's these activities that we're interested in. And if you have hung out with me for any amount of time, you know that I like to map out Edna's experience on a scale of extreme frustration to extreme delight. And the the process is we start to map out, we notice that whatever the first step is, let's say it's figuring out that when and where to take the vacation. Edna gets very excited about that. But as soon as she starts using some booking tool, her experience starts to degrade. But then she finds a place that she's excited about, so now her experience is delightful again. And but then she tries to actually book the space, and it gets really frustrating for her. And this is her experience. It's a peaks and valleys that show delight and frustration. And we can think in terms of this. From a research perspective, if we're doing usability testing, typically we're only doing usability testing on slices, right? We're only looking at the search slice, or we're only looking at the booking slice. Or maybe if we're lucky, we measure from the moment they come to the website to the moment they leave the website. But, there's having the vacation, which may be frustrating if, for instance, the room that they got didn't look like the pictures. There's all the things that happened before. There are all these spaces that we're not paying attention to in the experience of uh, of Edna, right? And so when we do techniques like usability testing, we're only looking at a slice of Edna's experience. And usually it's a pretty narrow slice because we only work with the search engine team on finding the venue. We only work with the checkout booking team on booking the venue. Those teams never learn what the other teams are experiencing. The researchers across those teams don't have any way of knowing what's going on. And as a result, there's all sorts of issues uh, uh, around these, the knowledge that we're building up. And this is that sort of reactive thing that we're dealing with. We are in this place where we don't have a full picture of Edna's experience. And because of that, we don't have a way to understand the relationship between what's happening when. And this is part of what gets us into trouble. And so this idea of using these more immersive research methods, of really exposing as much of the team as possible, is key to our success. And so this is how we start to think about continuous research. What we do is we start to try and get as much of a picture of the whole experience as we can. We want to understand that the whole experience that is happening there. And so we start this research, but it doesn't end, that it's not a sprint zero thing. It continues. And the way that we think about it is, instead of having discrete projects that are going on, we look for the decisions. We try to predict the decisions that are happening at different points in the project, including the decisions that are happening in that space where we're deciding on what is on the roadmap. And oh, yeah, I am. Thank you, Rose. There we go. I was drawing all this stuff and you didn't see it. Okay, so here we go. Now we got it. I was so excited about this. We have our discrete projects. We have our research. We're growing our research over time. We're trying to capture as much knowledge about the complete experience, not just Edna's experience, by the way, but we're also looking for Tyler's experience and uh, who else? Andy's experience and Deborah's experience. Uh, uh, all of these people. So, we've got Edna here too. And we're looking, and I talked a few weeks ago about personas, and personas are important when Tyler's experience for booking a vacation becomes different than Edna's experience, or when Andy's experience is different than Tyler's. Then we back into personas. But we don't need personas at the beginning of the project if we don't know what the differences are between Edna, Tyler, Andy, and Deborah. But we focus on capturing the whole experience, and we're now just building expertise. So the goal becomes less about answering discrete questions like, is this design built right? To understanding what the solution is to the big problems. And to do that, we need to understand, what problems does Edna have? What problems did Tyler have that are different than Edna's problems? What problems does Andy have that are different than Edna and Tyler? What problems do Deborah have that Tyler and Edna and Andy don't have? And we want to understand that world. And we really build up expertise. So everything we're doing is about becoming smarter and smarter. The goal is to become the world's foremost expert in what it's like to do the things that Edna, Tyler, Andy, Deborah, and the rest of our users need to do. And we are just diving in. And instead, the way we work with the teams is we are constantly bringing them in and dropping knowledge into our research process. And what this means is product managers and developers participate in some of it. That may mean that, we need to reenact some of it for them. We need to maybe we go visit someone like Tyler, and we discover that Tyler's got a really interesting problem, and we ask Tyler in the visit, hey, can we bring a small away team with us next time? And we bring some product managers and developers to meet Tyler and see the problems that Tyler has had, and we work from there. And what we're doing here is we are building up not only the expertise of the research team, but the expertise of the entire team, including the product managers, including the execs, including the stakeholders. And we're always talking about the experiences that we're seeing as we're meeting people. And we're growing those experiences over time, growing that expertise, which allows us to become that world's foremost expert in user experience. The questions that we're answering are, who are the users? Are there different types of users? Are there different subtypes of users? Do different types of users need different things? Are there different contexts of use, right? Is taking a vacation with a large family different than taking a vacation with just you and your significant other? These are um, uh, uh, these are the things that we are very much focused on. And we want to look at really understanding who the users is and what they're about, because what we want to work towards are what we call UX outcomes. UX outcomes are the phenomena when um, that happens basically when what we see is that we're making improvements in people's life, right? If we do a good job on the thing that we are building, do we improve someone's life? Because at the end of the day, that's what these projects are about. When we get to this moment that someone uses it, it better be better than what they had when we started this whole cycle. Otherwise, why did we build it? What was it that we were trying to do here that we didn't end up succeeding at because we didn't build what we needed? And that's that is in essence the goal of what we're trying to understand. So the what we're talking about here is, do we have a better experience for users when we ship? We have to provide the answers to the questions up front before they go. And we can do this because we can predict what questions people are going to have. We've done enough of these projects that we know how to start to predict this. And in future weeks, I'll be going through and talking about how you identify the key questions that you need to answer the decisions that are happening. But it's not that hard to do, because you know that we need to figure out what thing to build next. We need to figure out what the definition of done is for that thing. We need to figure out whether we have the right team and the right schedule to build that thing. And all of these questions are predictable. And then when we work closely with product managers, with other stakeholders, with executives, we can find out the other questions that are related to business objectives. You know, if they're focused on increasing revenue through retention, there's a whole bunch of questions we can do there. If they're looking at breaking into new markets, there's a whole bunch of questions we can do there. If they're looking at creating a one-stop shopping site for everybody who comes to the place, there's a whole bunch of questions we immediately know what to do. This turns out not to be the hard thing. The hard thing seems to be getting this mental shift from discrete projects, from being reactive, from focusing on usability testing as the primary research tool, to actually having continuous research, being proactive, and expanding our research to be much richer than what the slices that usability testing gives us. And that hurdle is on us. That's not trying to convince stakeholders to do this. That's us making the decision that we're no longer going to do this reactive type of research, and instead we're going to move to the more proactive research. So that's what a good UX leader is doing, is pushing the organization. It's not easy, it takes time, but it is absolutely doable. Continuous research is an advanced approach to UX research. It requires a mindset shift that's beyond sort of this discrete validation style of usability testing, where all we do is make sure we built the right thing and that we built it right. And what happens when we get to this proactive mode is that researchers become leaders in the organization who are leading that organization to develop shared expertise on who the users are, what the users need, to become the world's foremost experts on who the users are and what they need. And you can measure success when you are getting to these important decisions that people used to guess at, and now they're actually succeeding at those decisions and making them in 0 days because they have the information they need.
Jared here. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing so you'll get more videos like this. If you have any comments, questions, or thoughts, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And hey, consider joining our Leaders of Awesomeness community. It's completely free, home to over 50,000 UX leaders who regularly share questions, ideas, inspiration about their experiences. The link is in the description below. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.